Hi, I'm your host, Ed Parcaut here of Inner Edison, and today's guest is Rich Rudzinski. I know I killed that already. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing awesome, Ed. Really excited to be here.
I appreciate you showing up today. I know you're in probably really sunny San Diego, right?
Yeah, it's pretty rough down here. Pretty
Yeah.
rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably been, with the COVID, it's been probably nicer to go to the beach and other places because there's less people, right? No tourists.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it was a little bit, they were shutting everything down and then opening it up and shutting it down. And I think everybody's looking for that outdoor, kind of escape. So, I mean, I think the beaches and like hiking trails and everything have been like pretty packed out because people are looking for anything to do to get out of their houses. So,
Right. And I can understand that because we actually we have a cabin up in, like an hour and a half from us, and we're up there as much as possible, just the
yeah,
same thing.
right.
Yeah, we might hang out in the cabin, but at least we went somewhere else,
Yeah,
right?
a different inside atmosphere. Yeah.
Right. And there's nothing to do because there's no cell coverage, so you don't have to worry about people bugging you.
Well, there you go. That's a good escape just in itself.
Yeah. So, my listeners won't know who you are, so why don't you give a little explanation of who you are, what do you do, and your background, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I run Tragic Media. It's a software and technology consulting firm. As you mentioned, we're based down here in San Diego, but my team's all across the United States, and we help businesses all across the world, mostly focused in North America. And we just help businesses solve their most challenging technology problems, whether that's big integration, whether we're doing cloud hosting optimization, building a new application for them. And we're starting to get a little bit into the IoT space, building some software there. So we work with a wide variety of firms, both entrepreneurs and startups that are looking to, build their next great idea, as well as mid-size and some enterprise businesses that are looking to either build a new software product or streamline, like I mentioned, their cloud hosting costs, or just kind of extend their team with a bunch of senior level experts.
All right, how did you get into this space? Because and don't take this personally, but you look more like you should be in a rock band or a punk band
Yeah,
than any other space. And
yeah,
don't
of
get me wrong,
course.
when I was in the Navy, I looked totally different than I do now. So when I was down in San Diego, so
Yeah,
how
yeah.
did you get in this space? Is it something you always thought about, or had you always been pulled into this area?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up, I was a computer nerd from, the very beginning, always building my own computers and playing video games and getting into, new technologies and everything. So my college degree ended up actually being a little bit of a mix, a little bit of the music, a little bit of the technology. And I grew up in the LA area. So I came down here for school, and to be in the music industry, you really have to go back to LA, and it wasn't really what I wanted to do. So I went into the digital space. I cut my teeth at a local agency down here, interactive agency, learning all about building new web technologies. Working on some really great projects for. I think some of the first things we did was like the Atlanta Falcons and Baltimore Ravens, and we were doing a bunch of like football sites and stuff. So really just, top level web and digital products. And I worked there for a couple years, kind of hit a growth ceiling and was looking for a new opportunity. Happened to coincide with the 2008 recession, and was a lot of people weren't really hiring, but I was really looking for kind of some movement. So I started working on my consulting, just doing some stuff on the side. I quit my job and started focusing on just kind of doing some consulting while I was looking for that next full-time gig. And that's just really started taking off. And so I grew my business from a solopreneurship into a small consulting agency into the growing business we are today.
And like you said, you all over the country is your staff. I mean, I guess COVID really hasn't affected you because everybody pretty much worked where they were at.
Yeah, we were already pretty much remote first. We had a couple people down here in San Diego that would come into an office space, but the office space was really mostly for like meeting clients and doing business development. So it hasn't impacted us that much. Maybe a little bit of a shift in culture, but not too bad. Not really what most businesses are dealing with, which is really just like figuring out how to manage and not only manage a remote team, but also to do their tasks, which a lot of times requires in person. Communication or interactions.
Okay. So what? All right. So you explain what you do. What would you say? All right. So what? let's figure out a project so somebody understand exactly what you did, from start to finish. If you, because right now do you do web design, or you do way more than that? Do you do apps, everything? What do you do?
Yeah. So we're really technology focused. We build web apps, mobile apps, and then help with like the infrastructure layer of things. So we also do the design, but our focus is really on the development and the engineering side of things. So sometimes we partner with other design teams, sometimes we work with in-house designers, and sometimes we bring on our designers. But let's say you're an entrepreneur that has an idea for a new company, you would come to us. We'd help work with you to do some strategy and make sure that the your idea is aligned with the market and that there's not a lot of competition, that it's feasible. We put together project scope for you and work through you to then figure out all the features, design the whole thing, and build and launch that product for you. And then we'd be there to help you to support and scale that over the years. We have very flexible engagements with our clients, so we can really help to empower them to grow when they're ready to, and not be a really big cost for them when they're just kind of in their stable growth phases.
Is there anything that I would know, what I mean, that you've helped with grow app wise or company wise?
We've got the opportunity through some of our partners and as well as some of our own projects to work on like a wide variety of things. I mean, we've done stuff for Intuit, we've done stuff for Qualcomm. We built a couple years back. We had built the Pixar website. Yeah.
So you've done some big stuff
So
that
there's some
people.
stuff, totally mixed in. And then there's a lot of like, smaller business things. And we've helped, a small law firm in Pennsylvania build just a little portal for their clients. We help some nonprofits with their web properties and some museums and things like that. And then a lot of startups and entrepreneurs that are just, trying new ideas. Working with the client right now in like the nonprofit social space to launch a new web platform for nonprofits. So it's each project is a different challenge, and so more so than like a lot of agencies verticalize around like a very specific framework or solution. Like they only do Shopify, they only do WordPress, or they only help healthcare companies, or they only help whatever else it might be. We're a little bit more broad and more focused on being senior level generalists. So anybody can kind of come to us with a problem and we can solve it within the different variety of frameworks that we work with. Or we have some great, partners that we can refer people to if it's not the right project for us.
All right. So now we know who you are and what you do. So going from working for somebody and starting your own business is, most people don't understand the differences and the challenges. And do you want to get into it a little bit? Because I mean, you probably knew, hey, I'm going to start this thing. And then all of a sudden I'm going to start a business. Now I got to hire people. Now I got to work on contracts. Now I got to work on other stuff. A lot of people don't realize that. And we'll get into more of this, but I've seen a theme along my podcast regarding it's lonely at the top. You know what I mean? When you build a company and you're at the top, it's different than being part of a team and that at a company. And now you have all these people, it's a little bit lonelier. So but I won't get to that. Maybe you don't have the same problems, but I've found the theme. My wife was listening to all my podcasts. She's like, wow, you guys talk about how it's lonely at the top, and it really can be. And it's so important to have mentors and coaches and cornermans and whatever you need to be there to help you, because it's really lonely. I mean, if you look at the guy that had Zappos, he passed away in the last year or whatever from being extremely lonely at the top, and so I'm sorry, I went depth in some other ways, but let's talk about you, and the fact of, that your journey from, being a employee, right, or technically a consultant or whatever, to where you are now.
Yeah.
So first question, what was the most challenging that you found changing from what you did to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the whole message of your podcast is super awesome. I really identify with that. Both, when you talk about being lonely at the top, and then also about the whole just growing through failure and the challenges that come. And you touched on a couple points there that I think are really important. With the kind of like my journey has been like I grew this from a solopreneur, so like I was just a consultant. I was doing the work, and so like going from doing the work to selling the work to running a company is some really big, leaps and bounds there. And I definitely learned everything the hard way. It wasn't up until actually recently that I just recently started a CEO like coaching group, which has like helped me immensely to meet others at my same level. Cause kind of like you said, as you start to grow things, you start to outgrow some of your peers and some of your network. And sometimes it's hard to find people that are at that same level with you, especially in the type of industry that I'm in and the type of business running the consulting industry. There's a lot of other like SaaS founders that I know and other things like that, but their challenges are a lot different than my challenges. I think, one of the biggest hurdles for me has been the shift in mindset of becoming a business owner versus versus being like a consultant. And I think one of my biggest hurdles in the company was couple years back, I was stuck working too much, like, it's very kind of cliche, but working too much like in the business instead of on the business, where I was too deep in the weeds of a project, and not paying attention to all the different moving cogs. And it ended up, being a big crash and burn for us. Had to let go of a lot of people, and kind of reposition the company, reposition my role in that company, and just, really work on hiring some great people to help us grow from that. So.
Yeah, along the way, the journeys there's nobody there to help you to explain these little issues that are going to come up, and so we unfortunately have to learn the hard way,
Yeah.
which is not a bad thing because then we realize what we're not going to do again, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so when did you? So for me in my industry, I learned the best thing I do is talk to people. Right, that is my job all day long. I talk to them about what they want to do, where they want to go. What have you gotten to that point in your business where you found out this is the best thing I do and this is all I focus on?
Yeah, yeah. Like I was saying before, like I got stuck, too much in the projects. I'm a developer, so like, a lot of times, when push comes to shove, like I'll get in there in the code, or projects get bind up. I want to help, push things along. But I found over the years, that I really need to be the head of business development. Like if I'm not out there, connecting with people, helping people, making sales, helping to build the brand, then nobody else is really able to fill that role. I've tried to bring on other business development people, other sales people, and it just hasn't been a good fit. And they haven't been able to really take that off of me. So regardless of where I might think I should be or might be best at, like that's the place the business needs me to be at. So like I always have to be, focused on the business development, focused on the relationships and the partnerships, and growing that. And then everything else, I kind of have to find people, whether it's, running the administrative side of things, or whether it's, running the actual like project details and strategy. I've had to bring on other people to help fill in those roles.
Okay. And that's, the journey along the way to realizing what you need to get out of the way so your company can grow and
Totally.
do what you do best. And I'm sure you getting out there talking to people and it's changed and it's the same thing. We want to help out, but we also have to get out of the way
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, totally.
So you're all right. So one of your big, so that was, I want to go back to your journey a little bit more, if that's
Hmm.
okay. And
Yeah.
so what have you grown the most from during this process, where you went, okay, I know you said you get out of the development and get out of the weeds, but there's got to be something else that you're like, okay, now I really know what I wanted, where I'm going, and that kind of stuff. Was there any major change like that throughout, or has it just been, I'm setting these little goals, I'm doing this, or do you not set goals? I know I'm going all over the place, but there's just, I'm trying to make you think about,
Yeah. Yeah.
hey, what to talk about because I mean, 2008 was a huge downturn for us, right? When
Yeah.
we all came out on the other side. For you, it was actually a benefit because you
Yeah.
created your company out of that. So, and I don't want to keep talking for you, but
Yeah, no, but I mean that's a great point. Is like, and I think it's kind of echoes of where we are today. Is like anytime there is a big, downturn in the market, anytime there's a big shift in society, that creates a lot of new opportunity for entrepreneurs. It creates, whether you might have been out of your job that you're at right now, or you might have hit some growth ceilings because of things that are happening right now with the pandemic, but that just means that there's other opportunities that are presenting themselves, if you kind of look outside of your like, initial focus there. So that was a big one for me, was like, at some point I realized like I need to stop looking for a job because I have a job right here. This consulting is really starting to take off. I was doing the consulting for a while, and then I was realizing like this is more than just about me, like I can grow this into a company. Every time I've kind of done these things, it's kind of been a little bit of like, realizing like here's where I need to get to like solve this problem, or maybe get a little bit to that next level, but it hasn't been as guided in terms of like that goal setting orientation like you had. That's something that I've been doing a lot more in the last few years, especially in starting to work with this coaching group and everything, where it's a little bit more about like, what's that big picture that I'm trying to take for the company? What am I trying to achieve with this? And, what are the steps then to get there? A little bit less haphazard of just like, oh, we're growing. Oh, we need more people. Oh, we're running out of sales. We need to do biz dev. Everything else before was a lot more reactive. And I feel like, as I've gotten ahead of the business and changed my mindset about it, I've been able to be a little bit more goal oriented, a little bit more planned, a little bit more proactive about like my approach to growth.
So that was from the coaching program that you got in the CEO program. Is that how
Yeah,
you,
I
or
mean,
did you do it a little bit before and then
yeah,
go,
a little bit,
I,
totally, a little bit before, where like, you're starting to learn and you're like, hey, okay, I'm starting to hit a lot of issues here. And I think if I, looked forward, 6 months a year versus like looking forward, 2 weeks a month, I'll be able to like kind of get ahead of these things. I've always thought I've always looked for some sort of like kind of mentorship, but I just haven't found the right program for me before. I had like applied for like some accelerator at one point, and when I went in, like basically they're like, we can help you get to a business to $1 million, and I was like, well, I already have like $1 million business, so like I guess this isn't the right fit for me. So finding this other group, they've put me in with my peers, at people that also have similar types of businesses, similar challenges, similar size, and everything. So I finally feel like I've found people that are at the same level as me. So then it's I was listening to one of your other podcasts, and a lot about like learning from other people at that top level, and then you can like learn from their mistakes, which might not necessarily be the same as the problems you're having, but a lot of those same learnings and teachings will still apply to things that you're encountering in your business. So.
yeah, it's I've said this a lot of times, is you have to have the coach, you have to have a mentor and or a corner man. That's the corner man's a new thing I just learned from that podcast. Hasn't come out yet. That'll be in a couple weeks.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very important. It took me a long time to find for myself and the right person, because I don't want a cheerleader, right? And that's the problem with most coaches, that they say they're a coach, they're a cheerleader. We don't need
Right.
cheerleaders. It irritates us. We need somebody to help us plan what we want to do and how we want to get to where we want to go.
And challenge you too, and challenge your thought processes, and make sure that you're thinking through all the different steps and all the potential outcomes and everything. And I agree. Like, I think for a long time, maybe I was a little bit stubborn about like, somebody understanding all of my struggles and being able to like, help me with that. Or maybe it was just not finding the right people, like I had mentioned before. But when you find that person, or you find that group, it's a game changer, because all of a sudden, like, it just opens a lot of doors, both in terms of like your network and everything, and then also brings a lot of outside perspective into you, whether it's from a coach or a CEO group, whatever it is. People that have seen others through these same types of challenges can help notice the patterns, even if they don't know your specific industry or your specific problems. They can at least help identify some of the patterns and present options that of how other people have solved these problems before, and then at least gets the wheels turning, gets you thinking about some possible solutions there.
Yeah, and it's so important. I don't want to keep reiterating about the coach and stuff, but if you don't, because you can go it alone, and we talked about this. As you get higher up, you're alone. You can't, and there's nobody who's going to have you can't go to your competitor who is exactly like you and go, "Hey, how did you do this?" Because they're going to say, "I'm not telling you because you're going to take over my business." Totally. So you have to go to other places that. And for myself, I look at other industries totally different than the industry I'm in to steal stuff from there and bring it into my industry. And that's basically what you should do when you're doing, when you're growing your business. So what would you tell somebody who's thinking about doing what you did? What's the number one thing you would tell them to make sure that they do?
For starting a software consulting business,
or a haircutting
don't do it.
Too much competition.
Yeah, I mean, software consulting's it's a tough game. And then especially with a lot of the things that are coming out right now with like some of the no code, low code platforms and everything, like it's really a challenging space to really make your name for. And then on top of it, like I just feel like especially on like the development side of it, like on the design side of it, you can, I think there's a lot more of like the unknown aesthetics of design that, people maybe buy into, but with development, it's really about, just building solutions. So then they will undercut the value of your solution compared to like, an overseas team. And so you're struggling with not only other software consultants that are at the same level of you, but then you're, always being devalued because there's teams that will work for fractions of a penny that can quote unquote do the same thing that you can do. So it's a lot of being able to educate that and stuff. I think there's a lot more opportunity for somebody that knows software and can build software. Like you should get into building software as a service, build a SaaS solution. That's a lot more of a clear cut and a lot more of a scalable way. It's a little bit harder maybe in terms of like finding that perfect market fit. But if you can get it, it's a lot easier to get investments than it is for a consulting firm, a lot easier for growth and everything like that. So it's definitely something that you have to be hesitant with. And if you do go down it, then my advice is not to follow the model that I did and to absolutely verticalize, like find one core group of customers that you can solve a problem for and just go upstream in that way. And then it's a lot easier to grow, like because we were originally a white label agency. So we only worked with other agencies to help them solve their problems in the very beginning. So that was another growth hurdle was, solopreneur to white label agency to, end consulting firm that we're helping directly with the end, clients now. And so I think like just in that growth and in that trajectory, there's just been, it let us create a lot of projects over a large variety of solutions, a large number of industries, and it's been really hard for us to verticalize because we have so many different types of projects that we've worked on, which is great because then you come to me with a new idea and, I'm going to think outside the box about a great solution for you. But that's just a really hard thing to market and scale because we're trying to be too many things for too many people. But that's our own problem. So.
Right. So what you're telling me is I always think that my business is so tough, but I mean, it's any business. There's change, constant change,
Yeah.
and I tell somebody, the only constant thing in my industry is change. And
nice. I like that.
Yeah. And that's the same, I think, across all industries, especially with what you're dealing with people coming up with things so much faster and how, technology changes and stuff. I started in the hardware industry years ago before I got into the mortgage industry. So I understand the computer.
Yeah,
I
how
understand
fast
all
that rolls. Yeah. And
And I'm
especially
old,
nowadays,
so I'm old
it's
compared
going.
to you. So it was much. We had like period of time that before. Now it's like constantly so much
Constant.
faster.
Absolutely.
And so I want to get back to what you were talking about, where if you can always find stuff cheaper,
Yeah.
but it's not better. And
Oh,
people need
absolutely.
to realize that
Mhm.
you get what you pay for, and you need a professional handling your stuff. And it's the same thing. Like we can be undercutted, occasionally, but but you don't get everything we give you.
Yeah.
And if you just want a certain thing, I'm not going to help you. But I look at the long term other stuff that you're getting involved with, and how is this going to relate to the rest of your life and where you are in life, not just here's a number.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing from you is, yes, you can get it done cheaper, but it's in the long run, it could be more expensive because they don't understand everything you're trying to do. So would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I'm, the whole, our whole approach comes from like a strategic kind of, base. And I think in the type of work that we do, a lot of people are just doers. And so they'll just build, they'll build whatever you want without thinking about whether it's the right thing to build or really thinking through, the long-term scale of the architecture. So a lot of times when we're working with some of the bigger companies, we're going in and we're looking at an existing application that has just been hit all the walls in terms of its growth, and we need to like rebuild that in a way that's going to be able to scale for the future. And that's where we come in and consult a lot of times with that. So I think that just in that though, it's just a little bit harder of a sales process, a little bit harder of a marketing thing. You need to establish yourself as a brand and authority figure a little bit stronger to be able to charge the higher rates, to be able to explain to your customers what your value is versus, an overseas company or a competitor that's, saying that they can undercut you or anything. But ultimately, I think it also comes back to like good client fit. Somebody that's nickel and diming you and that's looking for the cheapest solution possible, they're probably not going to be the great long-term client that's really going to get the value out of the service that we provide in a long-term support environment. They're not going to understand that this money that they're putting in, it's an investment. Like you said, things could that price point undercutting doesn't necessarily mean that the solutions are one-to-one, and it also doesn't mean that they're going to grow and scale in the same way. It'll most likely come back to bite you in the end. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I totally agree. I mean, I think the most important thing is to build your brand, build who you are, what you stand for, build that. And did you build, so would you say that your company's really you? You follow what I
Um,
mean by your brand now? Or have you kind of got lost in, you
I,
follow
I,
what I'm
I've,
getting at?
yeah, I've actually been able to take a little bit of a step back now, finally, like, because again, this came from my solopreneur. So that was like one of my first hurdles was like, how do I get people to pay me for somebody else to do the work? And like, I was the expert, I was the specialist. They want me to do the job, but now I hired two people and they're going to do the job. Like, how do you sell that? And it's totally a brand move. It's about changing the messaging, of the company, of the sales process. But then even with that, for a long time, Tragic was Rich. It was me. And there, it wasn't until like the past few years we've kind of hit this next scale of brand growth where the company has become its own brand. It's become, it has enough of a reputation in and of itself that it extends beyond just me. And also, a big part of that is not only the brand and the marketing, but also the team that I've brought on board. I've brought on board some really, really great people that have helped, even just build that brand even higher beyond what I could do for just myself. So it is a growth process. It's a lot about marketing and messaging, but it's also about getting the right team in on board and being able to, produce great work for your clients, over and over.
Right. And I just bring it to a little bit like I do is basically, yes, you could talk to me all the time, but I'm not the person who's dealing with what you're dealing with, and they are the specialists of what their work. We have a assembly process for what we do pretty much. And so each
Mm-hmm.
person does certain things. So if you have a question on that, you need to talk to that person
Totally.
because they're the expert. And that's basically what you have done.
Yeah.
It just takes a while to set those expectations to your clients to understand the process and say, yes, I am still here, but you're going to get the best thing by dealing with so and so, so and so, and so and so,
Absolutely.
because this is how. And I think it takes entrepreneurs a while to get out of their own way.
Yeah.
And because nobody, I mean, you can read books on it, you can read stuff, but until you do it, you don't understand the headaches. Because I remember working for a guy saying, "I spend your money as much well as I would if it was my company." No, you don't. Once you go out and get your own company, it's a totally different way of
Yeah.
looking
It
at it. I don't care.
changes.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
like totally changed. Well, do I really? No, I don't really need that, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
totally different. Yeah. So, Rich, I really appreciate you being on here today. Is there anything last thing you want to throw out there for the listeners?
Definitely, connect with me. Anybody that's looking for, help with the technology project, whether my company can help you or not, I'm happy to help consult and just, provide some expert analysis or feedback for you. You can find us on LinkedIn. Look up Tragic Media, Tragic Rich. You can find me pretty easily. Go to tragic.media, check out our site, check out some of the case studies and different projects that we've worked on. And, just really, looking to connect with anybody, that wants to, and see if we can help them out with any of their projects.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And thank you so much for being on today.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. It was a great time. Really good chatting with you.